Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm Mac Pritchard, your host and publisher of Mac's List. Our show is brought to you by Mac's List and our book, Land Your Dream Job in Portland and Beyond. To learn more about the book and the updated edition that we're publishing in February, visit maxlist.org/ebook. Before you start a job search, you need to do your homework. One of the most important steps you can take is to put your online house in order. According to one estimate, 80% of employers Google candidates before inviting someone in for a job interview. What will people see when they Google you? Photos from your college spring break trip to Mexico or an up-to-date LinkedIn page? What impression will you create online? That you're the life of the party or an accomplished professional? Using social media in your job hunt isn't only about playing defense. Facebook and other personal accounts can make a big positive difference in your career. This week on Find Your Dream Job, we're talking about how to use social media in your job search. Cecilia Bianco, filling in for Ben Forstag, has a tool that finds and removes objectionable material from online accounts. Cecilia also tells us how to handle a common LinkedIn etiquette question. And I talked to Joshua Waldman, the author of Job Searching with Social Media for Dummies. As always, let's start by checking in with the Mac's List team. Cecilia, this week we're missing our third musketeer.
Yes, we are. He's out on paternity leave.
Yeah. Big congratulations to Ben and his wife, Erin, on the arrival of their new son, Oliver Fox Forstag, who has a great acronym that's OFF. So I'm going to puzzle over that. Ben isn't here, but we're very happy for him and his family. Now, let's talk about social media. LinkedIn is the most popular social media site for job hunters. Cecilia, when did you first sign up for LinkedIn, and why did you do that?
I signed up quite a few years back, my sophomore year, when I was applying for my first internship. My college professor had suggested that I get on there and get my experience up there so that when I did apply, they would have something to see online that showed my professional experience.
And did you find that helpful when you were starting out?
Yeah, I did. It gave them some background before I came in for an interview because they knew where I went to college and if I had any previous work experience. And I think it was helpful for me and them.
And was that a novelty among your fellow students at that time to have a LinkedIn page?
I think so, yeah. I think my program, which was focused in journalism, paid a lot of attention to things like that and getting prepared for a career. So I think we were some of the first college students in our grade, at least.
Cool. Well, I first signed up for LinkedIn, I think in 2007, and it was so early in the development of the program. I remember inviting someone and getting a reply saying, well, I'll give this a try. I'm not sure it's going to take off or not. Mm-hmm. And obviously it has. Let's turn to the resource of the week. Before Ben started his leave, he discovered a great tool for job seekers that they can use to identify social media issues that might concern an employer. What can you tell us about that, Cecilia?
Yeah, so this week Ben planned to share a free tool called Scrubber that makes it a lot easier to clean up your social media profiles. I'm sure everyone has some potentially incriminating posts somewhere online that they're not going to want employers to see. And Scrubber is an application that automates the process to find and remove those posts. So Ben gave it a test run, but before he did, he spent about an hour looking through his Facebook posts and only got to the beginning of 2012. So he then started looking for a tool just like Scrubber and found it to be pretty helpful. Mac, I have a question for you. Have you ever actively cleaned up your social media profiles?
I have. When I prepared to do job searches or I've actually gone back and looked at LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. And I remember a lesson I learned early in my career when I was doing media relations in Boston. We had I had a boss who said, don't ever put anything in writing that you wouldn't want to see on the front page of the paper. And I've applied that rule as consistently as I can to my social media accounts. And it's a principle that served me well.
Yeah, that's a great rule. It's definitely an important thing to do before you even start applying for jobs because, as you mentioned, we know employers are going to look at us online, so you want to be prepared for that. So what Scrubber does is scan your social media accounts and it flags anything questionable, any content such as profanity, references to drugs or alcohol, or check-ins at what we would think of as questionable locations. And then it provides a report of all of this flagged content with links to edit or delete each post. So it's definitely going to save you a lot of time when you're doing this. As I mentioned, Ben went ahead and tested Scrubber, and he selected just his Facebook and Twitter accounts. And I know he was pretty impressed with what the tool came up with.
What did he find, Cecilia?
Well, hopefully he doesn't mind me sharing. It's nothing too embarrassing. So Scrubber flagged 120 of his 2,600 posts, and they were mostly just mild swear words and a couple references to his favorite beers. He also mentioned that he was cringing at how many cat photos he had posted while going through this process.
Well, cat photos and videos can be your road to viral success. We have a colleague here at our sister company, Pritchard Communications, who has a former colleague who has a cat video that has 3 million views and counting. So don't be afraid of cat pictures.
Yeah, and that is a great video. We might link that in the show notes.
Okay.
So overall, when Ben reported back about Scrubber, he said it worked out pretty well for him, but it did miss some posts that he would see as questionable, and it flagged a lot of irrelevant content as well. So while he thinks it's a great tool, it's still necessary to do some of that work for yourself and really manually go through and just skim your profiles. So there is a free version of Scrubber, and they also offer a more in-depth premium version for $20 or by sharing a link to Scrubber on your social media profiles. So check out Scrubber. It's available at www.scrubber.social.
Well, Ben returns to the office next week, and thank you, Cecilia, for filling in for him. If you have a suggestion for Ben, write him and he may share your idea on the show. His address is ben@maxlist.org. Now let's turn to you, our listeners. Cecilia, what question do you have for us this week from our listeners?
Our question this week is, I'm thinking about asking to connect with someone on LinkedIn. The problem is I've never actually met them. Is this okay to do? This question continues to pop up for us ever since the Kelly Blazek scandal. Mac, I'm sure you remember this, but for those of you who haven't heard of it, Kelly Blazek is a senior communications professional. She founded the Cleveland Job Bank and as a result has a very large professional network. So a college grad who had never met Blazek sent her a LinkedIn request with a message that did not go over so well with Blazek. And she responded extremely harshly to this college grad, and her response actually went viral. So if you read Blazek's email, I'm sure you'll agree with us that it was an error in judgment and really unnecessary to be so harsh. But the college grad did approach Blazek in a way that set her up for failure. Mac, we've discussed this a lot before, but can you share what you think the college grad did wrong in her LinkedIn request message?
I do remember this case, Cecilia, and I think the college grad made some rookie errors here. It's always important to be clear about what you want and be specific in your request when you're reaching out to someone for two reasons. One, it makes it much easier for people to say yes to you, and it also saves the time of the person you're writing to. So that was an error on her part.
Yeah, I think that was definitely one of her main errors. And the other thing was Blazek's main complaint about her email was that she came off as very expectant and that she was perpetuating this stereotype of millennials and college grads that we just want things without earning them. So that makes sense, even though Blazek's response was out of control. But if you're going to request someone you don't know on LinkedIn, this is really exactly what not to do. But it is definitely okay to request strangers as long as you're approaching it in the right way. So when you're sending a cold call request, you want to envision yourself meeting this person face to face for the first time. Think about how you'd greet them and how you'd introduce yourself. You wouldn't walk up to them and say, "I'm looking for a career in X." You would say hello and give a brief introduction of who you are. And usually when you're connecting with a stranger on LinkedIn, you have a reason for doing so, or you should have a reason for doing so, whether it's a request for an informational interview or you have an upcoming job interview at this person's company. And this reason should help you personalize the message and make it clear why you're reaching out to them specifically. So Mac, you get requests on LinkedIn from people you haven't met all the time. Can you give a good example of how someone did this?
A couple of examples come to mind. A basic one that I know we've talked about this in other shows is when you make a request for a LinkedIn connection, don't use the default text that LinkedIn provides. Take the moment to personalize the note, use the name of the person you're reaching out to, and then in a sentence or two, explain why you're reaching out to them. The other example that comes to mind is I'm much more likely to say yes to informational interviews or requests for introductions when people take the time to write a personal note that, again, lays out our connection, who introduced us, or how we might be connected to each other, and what they'd like to accomplish.
So I definitely agree with that. I know I've received requests from people who I don't know, and they simply email me and say they're looking for work and want an informational interview. I'm a lot happier to meet with someone when they explain specifically what they're looking for from me and why they chose to reach out to me instead of all the other communications professionals. So giving some background about why you're reaching out, such as maybe you want to follow the same career path and want to discuss that, will make the person on the other end feel a lot more comfortable.
And the comfort not only matters, but it helps them accomplish what they want to get out of the meeting. Mm-hmm. And one of the points I always try to bring up when I meet with someone is I want to make sure you get what you need from this conversation. So getting clear about what they hope to accomplish helps them get that done.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you, Cecilia. If you've got a question for Cecilia, her email address is cecilia@maxlist.org. These segments are sponsored by the 2016 edition of Land Your Dream Job in Portland and beyond. We're making the complete Max List guide even better. We're adding new content and publishing the book on multiple platforms. We're launching a new version of the book in February, and for the first time, you'll be able to read Land Your Dream Job in Portland and beyond on your Kindle, Nook, iPad, and other digital devices. You'll also be able to order a paperback edition. Whatever the format, our goal is the same. We want to give you the tools and tips you need to get meaningful work. To learn more, visit our website, maxlist.org/ebook, and sign up for our newsletter. We'll send ebook readers special updates, and we'll also share exclusive book content and provide you with special pre-sale prices. Here to talk about your online profile and why it matters is Joshua Waldman. Joshua knows how you can stand out online. He's the author of Job Searching with Social Media for Dummies, and he's also written for Forbes, Huffington Post, Mashable, and the International Business Times. Joshua's career blog, careerenlightenment.com, won the About.com Reader's Choice Award for Best Career Blog in 2013. When he's not writing, Joshua presents keynotes, trainings, and breakout sessions around the world. So, Joshua, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Mac, pleasure to be here.
Well, Joshua, you know all about social media, and I think when people think about social media and job hunting, the first application that comes to mind is LinkedIn. Tell us about the first time you used LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, I started using LinkedIn in 2006, and really because that's what the MBA program I was in at the time at Boston University told me to do. Prior to getting my profile set up, I was getting a lot of these "come join me" on LinkedIn emails that I thought were very spammy. But I caved in and decided to set up a profile. Really glad I did, because that summer we were studying overseas for the international MBA, and I was actually able to use LinkedIn to to meet with executives from around the world, to set up meetings and have coffee with these CEOs and CMOs in Vietnam and in China and in Japan, where I was.
When you see people use LinkedIn now, what do people do to stand out? What do you see people do that makes you say yes to their LinkedIn request?
If their profile talks to me, if they don't have a picture, I'm not going to accept the request, because it just seems like they're not taking this very seriously. And if they're just using their profile as a kind of a holding place for their resume, it's not very engaging. First of all, resume language is pretty stuffy. Let's face it.
Yeah.
And I think that when you're on a profile and you're using a social network like LinkedIn, you want to be able to make that connection with somebody else pretty quick. So I look for things like, are they really telling their story, or are they just copying, pasting their executive summary there? First person narrative is typically a good grammatical signal of that someone's taken the time to actually write about themselves online, and that's usually a good sign for me.
So be sure to have a picture. Don't import your resume, and use the first person when telling your story. When you see people who tell their story well, Joshua, what are the things they do that make you pay attention?
Well, what I'm looking for is how they're going to help me, and I think we need to keep that in mind, particularly as job seekers. It's not about, oh, look at me, I'm looking for a job. When people are reading your profile, they're thinking to themselves, how is this person going to help me? And when I'm deciding to accept or reject invitations, or even just in-mails, I'm thinking, okay, so what's in it for me? Like, what am I going to get from this connection? And if it's not imminent, if it's not obvious within the first couple of seconds, I'm really not going to spend too much time trying to figure it out. And so I think it kind of behooves anyone who's serious about advancing their career. And if you recognize LinkedIn as a tool to do that, make it really easy for your reader to know how you can provide value to them.
How do you see people provide that value, Joshua? Are there things they do in telling their story? Do they publish regularly on the platform?
Publishing has really, really exploded. I'm glad I started to do it last year. I've gotten a lot of traffic to my website. I think when you can tell your story with your voice, whether it's an article you write or if you're just sharing articles that other people write, I think it makes you a little bit more rounded as an individual. You're not just a profile on there, but you have something to say. I think that's important to do.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest changes I've seen in LinkedIn in the last few years, because in the beginning, I think people saw it as an online resume, and then it became a kind of contact database, a way of connecting with all the people in your professional circles. But it's become a blogging platform.
It's a fantastic blogging platform. I get comments every week. I think if I were a job seeker at a certain level in my career, I would want to be seen as a thought leader. Even if I wasn't actively looking for a job, if I was secure in a position that I'm comfortable with, I'd want to build my reputation up a little bit by having that library of articles under my belt.
What are some easy steps that people can take who are interested in using LinkedIn as a publishing platform? What are 2 or 3 simple steps they can take today?
Well, the first step is just to start sharing on it. You don't have to publish a 500-word article right off the bat. If it's new to you, if publishing online is kind of nascent in your life, then you could just take an article someone else has written and share it, and provide some commentary on that article. That's a good way to create engagement in your network. What happens is when you post, other people in your network will see it when they log into LinkedIn. It's on their homepage. And if they share it or like it or comment on it, your post now gets exposed to their network. And it's just a great way of growing your personal brand.
I think that engagement is so important. I meet a lot of people who think that their challenge is to update their LinkedIn profile. And if they do that, the recruiters and the job offers will come. Tell us why that doesn't happen, Joshua.
Well, it's very passive. I think that when you just go online and you tweak your profile around a little bit and you hope something were to happen is very disempowering. I think, yeah, it's important to do that and to have a groundwork of a good profile, but you're going to get pretty depressed pretty quick when nothing happens. You've got to put yourself out there, and publishing is a good way to do that. But more proactively than that is to actually research companies that you're interested in, find out who works there that might be a good source for information, and actually reach out to them. I've got some templates on my website that people can use for free. But even if you don't want to use templates, the advice is still there. Go find someone to talk to. Give yourself a goal. 3 new people a week or 5 new people a week, and hold yourself accountable to that goal.
That's good advice. Now, how about LinkedIn groups? What do you recommend people do with LinkedIn groups? How can they make the most of them?
Well, groups is very similar to publishing. And in fact, if you do publish, you could take your article and share it on the groups that you're a part of. Not every group is active. A lot of them are kind of self-congratulatory or self-promotional. Other groups are really good, where they're talking about industry-specific issues. Or I've had a lot of fun on my alumni groups where I've not necessarily reconnected with folks I went to school with. That's more of a Facebook thing, but I know that these are educated and serious professionals in that group, and we've had really good discussions about various topics. So, whether it's your alumni group or an industry group, there's even alumni groups for companies, like people who used to work at Cisco or people who used to work at Intel. There's really a lot of great groups out there to get involved with.
Good. Well, social media encompasses a lot more than LinkedIn. Tell us about some of the other applications out there, and like Facebook and Twitter, and how people can use them in their job search.
Twitter's probably the easiest one to tackle first. Recruiters use Twitter. There's really no doubt about that. Twitter's changed a lot. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for everybody, but it's a good way to get real-time job postings. And if you're following a recruiting company in your town, or you use Tweet My Jobs, you're going to get first notice when jobs pop up, and that's always good. The sooner you can apply, the better, of course. And then you could use Twitter to kind of bypass certain gatekeepers, and there's strategies around how to do that. But really, anyone from the CEO to the mailroom clerk are probably using Twitter to some extent, and it's a great way just to have that one-to-one communication.
How about Facebook?
Facebook is responsible for something like 8 million more jobs than LinkedIn. And the reason for that is not necessarily because there's more recruiters on Facebook. In fact, I don't think recruiters use Facebook very much. I think that they try to avoid it. But from a company's perspective, they're looking for referrals. Statistically, they know that referrals are better employees. They last longer, they perform better, and they're easier to hire. So referrals are family and friends of employees. Well, guess where your family and friends hang out? It's Facebook. So that's where Uncle Joey, who you haven't seen in 10 years, sees your post that you're looking for a job in a particular industry, and he thinks, so-and-so told me about this opening. I'm going to tell you about it and refer you into that position because I know you, like you, and trust you. So I think Facebook's a fantastic way to build relationships that lead to referrals into opportunities.
Good. Any other social media applications that people should be thinking about? Those, I think, are the big 3.
They are the big 3. There's a lot of articles about, how to use Pinterest and Google+, but, statistically speaking, there's really no significant universe of success for those applications. And, our time is limited, and we want to maximize and use the highest leverage tools that we can. So, I would say don't feel overwhelmed by these things. Pick one and learn it, understand it, do it well, and then move on to the next one. So start with LinkedIn, move on to the others, and I think you'll find results happen pretty quick.
Great. Well, thank you, Joshua. Tell us how people can find you online.
Well, you can check me out at careerenlightenment.com. You can find a couple of really fun free tools to help you out with this. First are those in-mail templates that I was talking about. You can, once you go to careerenlightenment.com, click on free stuff, and you'll see that right there on that page. And that'll help you kind of kickstart or jumpstart your networking activities on there. I also have a LinkedIn profile grading tool. So if you're not sure if your profile is up to par, this tool that I wrote, it's an application online, will actually give you a score and tell you specifically things you need to do to improve your profile. And also that's available on careerenlightenment.com.
Terrific. We'll be sure to include links to all of those tools in the show notes. Well, thank you, Joshua.
Thanks, Mac.
Take care. All right, we're back in the studio. Cecilia, what was the most important point you heard Joshua make?
Well, two things. I really liked his point about setting goals to make LinkedIn more valuable. So picking 3 people or 5 people per week to really build your network effectively. I think that's a great tip. And then I really liked what he had to say about Facebook, because it's not something we talk about a lot, but using Facebook as a way to build your network and get more referrals is awesome. It's a great tactic. And I actually just had a friend get hired through a referral. It's definitely the easiest way.
Yeah, Facebook has such great engagement. When I post something on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, I always get more engagement on Facebook. And I think the point about having a strategy is right on. I also liked his point about not using LinkedIn as a passively. Instead, think about how you can use it to engage with others and to be of service to others. We'll be back next week with Cecilia, Ben, and myself, as well as more tools and tips you can use to find your dream job. In the meantime, visit us at maxlist.org, where you can sign up for our free newsletter with more than 100 new jobs every week. And if you like what you hear on the show, you can help us by leaving a review and a rating at iTunes. This helps others discover our show and helps us help more job seekers. Thanks for listening.